Yeah. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you for joining us today. I'd like to seek the blessings of Radhaman, Radha Shyamsundar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Gonita, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. Continuing with chapter number 2. Yesterday, we discussed how Krishna gave the first instruction, his first instructions to Arjun, taking him off the material bodily platform and onto the spiritual platform immediately. This is a really fascinating painting, which shows the cycle of life, where the soul is moving from one body to another, even in this very life, moving from one body to another, while the soul remains the same. This shows that we can't be the body, because the body changes every few years, but we don't. We are the same person. So, as Krishna explains, we are spirit soul. And the nature of the spirit soul, he describes in the 20 verses that from text number 11 to text number 30, the nature of, or the characteristics of the soul, eternal, changeless, indestructible, imperishable, immeasurable, neither the slayer nor slain, no birth, no death, has not come into being, does not come into, will not come into being, unborn, ever existing, primeval, immutable, cannot be cut into pieces, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind, unbreakable, insoluble, neither burned nor dried, everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, eternally the same, invisible, inconceivable, amazing, to look at, to see, to hear, to be described. So these are all the different characteristics. 30 different characteristics, just given in those verses by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. So then he moves on to the next aspect of his instructions. So, Lokeshwar, why don't you start us off by reading the next load of verses?
Okay, Guruji. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there's no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there's no need for hesitation. Text 32. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Text 33. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Text 34. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Text 35. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. Text 36. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Text 37. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Text 38. Do so fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. Text 39. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without further results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such a knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. Text 40. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Text 41. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Text 42 to 43. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resulting good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. Text 44. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Text 45. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, O Arjuna. Become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and free from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self.
Thank you. There may be a little bit more, but let's just take Prabhabin's comment. Prabhabin?
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji and
Hare
all the
Krishna.
devotees. Just wanted to ask you, is he reading this Gita ji? Or
Yes.
is he...
So we are reading all the different texts in the Bhagavad Gita from text number 31. So yesterday we read from text 1 to text 30 of
And that
chapter
was
2.
first chapter?
Second chapter.
Yesterday was still
Chapter
second
2.
chapter.
Yeah.
So have you finished the first chapter?
First chapter is done.
Okay,
And
this
I'll
is
send you the
from...
link. You can listen to the link.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you. so
carry
much.
on. Yeah, thank you so much.
So, yes, keep going, Lakeshwar. There's quite a lot of verses here. So, yeah.
Text 46. All purposes are served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. Text 47. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. Text 48. Perform your duty, equipoised, Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Text 49. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. Text 50. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. Text 51. By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. Text 42. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Text 53. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, and when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will attain the divine consciousness.
Wonderful. Thank you for reading all those verses. Lot of verses there. 23 verses. Now, there's a lot of information that Krishna gives in these verses. I just wanted to pick out some of the verses which are which stand out for me. I mean, there were brilliant verses, but there's some which stand out more than others. How he says to Arjuna, you'll be called a coward if you leave. So here the second part of his instruction in the Bhagavad Gita's second chapter is do your duty. You're a Kshatriya. You have to do your duty, which is fighting. So yes, I've already told you you're a soul. So you've nothing to do with the body, but you've got a body. You got to act according to the duty that is designated for the body you have got. So you're a Kshatriya. And for Kshatriyas, fighting opportunities are what they look for. This is what takes them to heaven. If you don't fight, you're going to become a coward. You will be called a coward. Better you're killed on the battlefield. So just become determined and fight. And he introduces this concept of karma yoga here. Do your fighting for the sake of fighting, without consideration of happiness or distress, loss or gain. That's karma yoga. And then this text number 40 is really interesting. In this endeavor, when you start with karma yoga, there is no loss or diminution. Little advancement on this path can protect you from the most dangerous type of fear. So this is such an amazing verses. And then he talks about the Vedas, how don't be influenced by the flowery words of it. The Vedas will entice you to worship the demigods, to get material opulences, but don't fall for it. So, and then again, he talks more about performing the prescribed duties without being entitled to the fruits. That's again, karma yoga. So let's have a look at the summary. How does such knowledge practically affect our day-to-day life in the real world? Krishna addresses this by explaining the two essential duties of the spirit soul. Dharma translates as duty, but it actually refers to the intrinsic characteristics and qualities of something that cannot be avoided, neglected, or negated. So dharma is that, for example, the dharma of fire is heat, right? If there's a fire and there's no heat, there's no meaning to fire. So the dharma of fire is heat. So our dharma, the dharma of the Atma, is to serve. Without serving, there's no meaning to the Atma, to the soul. So let's have a look at the different types of dharma, different types of seva. The soul has a swadharma. A worldly duty consists of responsibilities towards family, friends, society. That connection is to the body. So Krishna is giving that to him. Do your swadharma, do your worldly duty. But then we also have a sanatan dharma, eternal spiritual duty, which comprises of one's relationship with God, nature, and all living entities. So Krishna is giving him a hint of that as well, especially by telling him not to get swayed by the flowery words of the Vedas. So, what is the lesson from this? We have to learn to execute both dharmas, both the material duties and the spiritual duties side by side. It's not that we can just do our swadharma, our worldly duties, and ignore our Sanatan Dharma. No, because we're living in this material world, can we just do the Sanatan, eternal spiritual duties and neglect the worldly duties? We can't do, we have to do both. We have to learn to do both. Many individuals neglect their Sanatan Dharma, becoming too preoccupied with their Swadharma. On the other extreme, individuals can prematurely reject their Swadharma and falsely try to absorb themselves in Sanatan Dharma. The most progressive path is to be fully alert to both duties, both dharmas, and in doing so, lead a happy and balanced material and spiritual life. So the 23 verses that we just saw Krishna speak are all regarding to duty. He's stressing to Arjuna, you have to do your duty. Yes, you're a spirit soul, but you have to do your material duty. And at the same time, you have to look at your Sanatan Dharma as well. And then your Sanatan duties, he will talk a lot more about throughout the Bhagavad Gita. But here his focus is mainly on, you're a Kshatriya. Don't run away from the battlefield. So how does it apply to us? We can't run away from the battlefield either. Our battlefields are our duties, our different things that are taking what we have to do in this world. So we can't avoid our duties. We have to fulfill those duties, whatever they may be, according to our nature, whatever they may be. And everybody's duty is slightly different, depending on the type of body one has and type of consciousness one has, determines the duties that we have to perform. Okay, where's this coming? Now this is next lot. So who would like to read? Any volunteers would like to read the next lot? About 18 or so, 18, maybe more.
I can try, Prabhuji.
Okay, yes, go for it anyway.
Yeah. Text 54. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk?" Text 55. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "O Parth, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arises from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness." Text 56. One is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and one who is free from attachment, fear, and anger is called a sage of steady mind. Text 57. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Text 58. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limb within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Text 59. Though the embodied soul may be restrained from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense organs remain. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Text 60. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of determination who is endeavoring to control them. Text 61. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. Text 62. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from thus such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. Text 63. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Text 64. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. Text 65. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. Text 66. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Text 67. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away man's intelligence. Text 68. Therefore, O mighty arm, one whose senses are restrained from the objects is certainly of steady intelligence. Text 69. What is the night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sages. Text 70. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enters like rivers enter into an ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, one can achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Text 71. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. Text 72. That is the way of the spiritual and a godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter the kingdom of God. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nariman. So this is the end of chapter 2. And it's in response to Arjun's question. Arjun asks him, because Krishna has explained to him that your real nature is spiritual, but you also have to do your duty. So then Arjun is very inquisitive. He said, what is that person who is engaged in such a way? What does he look like? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? So Arjun wants to know, and Krishna describes to him, and especially what is really stands out in this part of the Bhagavad Gita is these two verses, 62, 63, because Krishna describes the process of how one falls into this material world. So I think I've got a diagram to describe that. Yeah. So this is the process of fall down. Text 62, 63. By contemplating the objects of the senses. So that's when we start thinking, we look at something, we look at a nice gulab jamun that's waiting for us. We're thinking, wow, looks tasty. One develops attachment for them. I want to eat it, which leads to lust because we only got one. We want more than one. This is a bit crude. And when that is unsatisfied, that lust is unsatisfied, results in anger. Why didn't they make more gulab jamuns? Which leads to delusion, sleeping, thinking about gulab jamuns. Then bewilderment, can't wake up thinking about gulab jamuns. Loses intelligence, can't live without gulab jamuns. And then one falls into this gross material existence. So it all begins by just looking at something. Just looking at something can lead all the way down to falling into this material world. Because by looking at it, one develops attachment for it, becomes lusty for it, gets angry because it's not fulfilled, becomes delusioned and bewildered, what to do, loses intelligence. So we have to nip it in the bud, which is right here. Don't even think about it. So let's see what the guidance is here, instructions. So summary, how he sits, how he restrains his senses. How does he walk? How does he engage his senses? How does he talk? How does he react in response to provocative situations? So this is what Arjuna is asking. The profile of the person who has performed both the duties perfectly is described by the Lord. Such a person becomes Atmarama, spiritually realized soul who finds pleasure in the self. Krishna explains how the Atmarama is unaffected by happiness or distress, gain or loss, honor or dishonor. Transcending the dualities of this world, such a spiritualist rids himself of qualities such as fear, attachment, anger, remains absorbed in spiritual delight and transcendental consciousness. So, very powerful verses. This is the longest answer Krishna gives to one of Arjun's questions. And it's such an important answer because it describes the nature of the devotee. He's not affected by happiness or distress. He's fixed. If we are able to restrain the senses by nip it in the bud attitude, then we will save ourselves a great deal of grief and anguish. And with the blessings of Guru and Gauranga, be on the way to become self-satisfied in Krishna consciousness, even whilst living in this crazy material world. So in this material world, there's so many desires. The television, for example, if we watch it, we will develop desire to enjoy, because television advertises so many different products for sense enjoyment. And unfortunately, we might think we're not affected by it, but subconsciously we get affected by it. And we want to enjoy those things. And slowly, it takes over our life, our mind. Yes, Bhavin?
Yes, but when you talked about television, especially so many different kind of food, I mean, it's so much. I just, when you, all the advertise like chocolates and gulab jambu and cakes and burfis and so many things, just can't stop thinking about it. It is, everything is like mouth watering. And even the, especially even the clothing also.
That's right. That's right.
The so many different types of clothing. Then you want to see, you want to go and buy this, you can go and buy this, like that. And everything is pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a problem we all have. It's a problem we all have. Yeah. So the way to try to avoid, getting more and more tempted with more and more things is to avoid watching those things in the first place. Try to avoid if possible. And, try to understand we don't need these things, especially if we are in trying to develop a spiritual consciousness. Nothing is needed. We just need some simple place to stay and perform our bhakti without any disturbance. Simple living, high thinking, if it's possible.
Sorry,
yes,
one more question.
Yes.
The way you said just now, sorry, just like stop watching those things.
If possible, yeah.
If possible, like there are so many series going, then there is, even if you watch an English film, still there is something about food all the time.
Yes.
So if you say we stop watching television completely, what's the best thing to do? Like not to watch at all, or?
If possible, try to avoid watching it, or watch religious programs.
I mean, I do watch Sai Baba.
There's so many religious programs.
There are some, and then I sometimes watch a couple of serials, like history serials.
Sure. Yeah, I think where there's information or knowledge giving, that's okay. But it's very easy to fall into this because our natures are sometimes a little bit lazy. We just let the TV carry on, and we watch other things as well, if possible. And it's such a waste of time, because it doesn't give us any value, really. So if possible, one should try to avoid television.
Avoid TV, yeah. Thank you.
We call it the one-eyed monster,
Thank you very much, anyway.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anything else? Naniben, is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji, I was just thinking that for people who are so much materially minded, they wouldn't think about soul or at that time, because unless something happens or they come in contact with somebody like a pure devotee, then only they will start thinking on that line, isn't it?
Yeah.
It may be, or at some stage, maybe perhaps a bit of an age advancing,
Yeah.
that they start to want to think about giving up the possessions, and then mind may change about turning towards Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably right. But the thing is, generally speaking, if one is a little bit sort of alert or conscious, one will realize I'm not getting, I'm getting everything I want, but I'm just not getting happiness. You know, for the latest iPhone, the latest iPad, the latest iWatch, the latest iTelevision, whatever it is, but still I'm not happy. Why is that? You know, that is a question that most people at some point in their life will have. I'm just not getting it. Something's missing. Something's really, but then to get that connection of getting that connection to the spiritual aspect of our life is a bit of a leap of faith. Yeah.
So the key word is happiness, isn't it?
Happiness. Yeah.
Yes.
Because the soul's nature is to be happier, because in the spiritual world is always happy with this, with the Lord. So that's our natural position. But we're in a place where happiness is impossible to get because of death. There's no such thing as a happiness in this world. Because death.
I think the happiness is just from inside you. That's it.
Right. Yes.
If you, I mean, yes. I try to keep myself happy. Whatever happened is happened. That's it.
Yes.
And you just, what happened yesterday, forget, new day, that's it. And just be happy. Like I went out, I was just thinking, I don't want to miss my satsang today. I just go home quickly. As soon as I'm in, I just open this and I start, sit down, and I'm enjoying this and I'm really happy.
Yeah, that's right. And that happiness, when it's coupled with knowledge that I'm happy because I'm connected with God, I'm connected with who I am, then that happiness becomes a real sort of substantive happiness. You know, it becomes something that is going to remain. It's not going to be attacked by the first bit of bad news I get. Won't be blown away, you know. So, for example, look at this verse here. The senses are so strong that they forcibly can carry away the mind of even a mind of a man of discrimination who is trying to control them. So even if one is happy, if we want to continue to remain happy, then we need to get this knowledge of the soul and the supreme soul and our connection. Then that happiness becomes very fixed. You know, nothing can destroy that happiness. No bit of bad news, no sense enjoyment can come in the way of that happiness. So then that becomes very substantial, you know, that's what Krishna wants us to have, that happiness, which he has, and he wants to share it with us. So very important.
Yeah, one more question.
Sure.
I mean, you might think probably he's asking too much.
No.
This happiness, we are always happy. I mean, I don't know about, I try, but the word something you mentioned just now, that in then happiness is something you hear the news or something happened to something. Then you don't want that thing to come in your way. Is that what you mean?
That's it. Yes.
Something happens bad.
Yes.
But you don't want
you're still
to
steady.
come.
Yes, correct. That's real happiness.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Otherwise, even the drunkard is happy, right? In his world, he's happy. But his happiness, we know, comes from, you know, like it's a false happiness because it's coming from not a right place.
Not right place. Yeah, that's different. That's different. Yeah. This is like when you with the God,
Yeah.
you are completely different.
Yes.
You know, it's just that you are attached to it. You are attached to Krishna.
Yes, that's better. That's a better way of looking at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. It was very nice. If any other points, otherwise we can stop today. Okay. Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagwan ki jai.